religious systems, I guess. Um, so that was kind of interesting too, to get a couple different perspectives on that. Um, Now, as far as Christian conversion, this will come up probably a couple of times during the show, how paganism had their traditions, and then when Christianity really started to take a firm hold, and they were not having a whole lot of success in, um, I feel like I don't want to say converting necessarily the pagans to Christian beliefs, but sort of being able to get them um, to become a part of the Christian tradition, and to become members and followers of this tradition as opposed to where they had been. Um, so, I mean, probably a lot of you have heard a number of times over the years that, and I don't want this show to be about this and this feeling, but the idea that the Christian church took over a lot of pagan traditions and changed them and made them this. This is not the way I want to approach this conversation tonight. But in the research that I did, there were a lot of examples of, like I said a moment ago, where the Christian church wanted to be able to convince people who had been following the pagan ways to join their particular faith system and their community. And it started out, you could see it as them sort of starting out, meeting them halfway. That's kind of how I saw at least this part anyway. So again, the Christian church couldn't change the beliefs, at least in Ireland, if you can imagine. Irish aren't stubborn at all, are they? Are we? They couldn't change the beliefs in Ireland very easily. So they were kind of allowed to, I don't want to say allowed, I don't like that word. I wrote it down, but I don't like that word. The Christian church had no problem with the pagans in Ireland honoring Breed as long as they saw her as a saint. So the Christian church made her a saint. They called her a saint. And then there was no problem with the pagans worshiping the goddess Breed as a saint. Now, Breed herself, and I love this spelling of it, Brighid. I love that spelling. It's from the Celtic language meaning exalted one. She is a Celtic triple goddess. She is a patron of poets and bards, of healers and magic practitioners. She is a goddess of hearth and home. And in Ireland, in the Kildare, Ireland area, there are a number of wells dedicated to her. And I don't know that I put this picture up yet in the Facebook page. I'm willing to do that once I get done with this. But I do have a couple of images of myself at one of the locations of Breed's Well in Ireland when I was there a number of years ago. And in these pictures that my friend Rebecca took of me, I had brought along, on this trip to Ireland, I had brought along my crystals, my tarot deck, and the set of runes that I had at that time. And I brought them all with me this day that we were going to. One of the stops we were making this day was at one of the locations of Breed's Well. And I brought these items with me to the well, and there are pictures of me sort of sitting on the edge of the well and actually in the water of this well, blessing my divination tools. And it was a very lovely moment for me. And it was actually an interesting moment. One of the interesting moments, too, is it was at that moment that Rebecca had suggested to me the possibility of creating my own runes, like maybe from pieces of wood in a wood burning set or something like that. I, of course, have not pursued that yet. In fact, I donated away my runes because I really never used them. So I donated them to Kindred Spirits, to my group out west. I don't know if anybody has picked them up and used them or not, but they're sitting over there. Another interesting thing, sort of connection that I have with Breed has been more recently. I think in the last show I mentioned to you guys that I had done my first official house blessing and dedication to new friends of mine. And one of the things that was suggested of me to do was to, I mean, there's partly a friend's suggestion and partly my own idea. one of the things that we did, we started out the blessing by having the owner of the house. I think, did I say this last time? Did I explain this whole thing last time or no?
You talked about it.
I did.
How much detail, I don't remember.
Me neither. But I'll say it again just to, maybe I'll say it shorter now in case I did. But what I had her do is I had her write down 4 intentions for the home. Sylvia's nodding her head. So I did say this last time, didn't I?
Yes.
Okay. So long story short again then, we blessed her intentions with water that I had in a little vial from one of the more recent trips to Ireland that I did not go on, but a friend of mine did, and she brought me back a little vial of water from Breed's Well. And being the goddess of hearth and home, we blessed these intentions with this water from Breed's Well and then buried them in the 4 corners of the property. So that had a lot of significance and meaning, both for me and I think the owner of the home actually took it to heart as well. So that was very cool. Rituals. Rituals are varied. Many of the rituals that are out there focus on honoring Breed, with a focus on fire and fertility. So I didn't realize until researching all this show that there's a lot of fire involved in celebrations and rituals honoring Breed. I didn't know that. Or at least I didn't pay enough attention when I heard them as I did now. But other communities then focus on the season, waking up the trees, Mother Earth stirring, honoring Mother Earth, maybe starting to feel the vibrations of Earth energy under your feet. One of my favorite times to go to the Morton Arboretum here in the Chicago area is in the springtime. Because when I've been there in the springtime, I can actually feel the life energy vibrating through the air and through the ground at this time, because everything is waking up and everything is green and lush and beautiful. And so there are communities out there that will not necessarily focus as much on Breed, but more just the earth season and the warming and the waking of the earth. Now, Candlemas was interesting. I had heard this term before. Again, never really paid much attention to it. I just figured it was lighting candles, and isn't that cool? But a lot of it is actually based on, in Christian tradition, and Sylvia, correct me if I'm wrong about this, because you have the degrees and I don't. But the first information I found in researching Candlemas had to do with the presentation of Jesus at the temple, 40 days after his birth. And I did glance, I didn't put it, I glanced past this next point I'm going to make because I didn't realize how relevant it was, but then I put it back in here. But there was apparently a tradition at the time held that it took 40 days for a woman's body to be cleansed after childbirth.
You would have to look at the Old Testament.
Yes.
But that sounds about right.
Yeah, right. And aside from people who visited them where they were staying, the baby was not publicly presented until after 40 days.
That makes sense.
Okay. And something in there that I glanced past seemed to say something about how that was more for male babies than female babies.
I would not know that.
Okay.
But
okay. In a sense, just in my gut, it kind of makes sense to me because I've always read, I guess, and heard that there is a difference. There's a notable difference. I don't know if it's status or what to call it, between the males and the females, between male babies and female babies. Male babies have a specific ritual that they traditionally go through, whereas female babies don't. Being the bris, the circumcision of the male babies.
Well, but it also depends on where you are.
That's very true. That's exactly very true. So that's why I thought it was interesting years and years ago when I learned that lineage-wise, the Jewish heritage is handed down from the mother, not from the father. So that was kind of interesting to me because I didn't realize that the women actually had that significant a place in Jewish culture and community. So that was interesting to me. So it's significant. The presentation of Jesus at the temple is significant because of this tradition. I did not know that. I don't remember being taught that in my Catholic upbringing. So after the 40 days, when the woman's body is cleansed and she is able to be out in public again, then the baby can be publicly presented. Now, another tradition, a non-Christian tradition, a pagan tradition for Candlemas, is that pagans brought torches across the fields in a procession. There's fire again, is showing up. Asking for Breed's blessing to purify the ground for planting. So this would happen around early February, again, Imbolc season we're talking about. The whole idea in general at this time of year, at this time of the year of the wheel of the year, is that the candles represents the light returning to the land. So it's not just a simple act of lighting a candle and isn't that cool. It means something more than that. Now, Persephone comes into play here, which I thought was really interesting for Candlemas, because I think I explained this before in a previous show. I didn't realize that she is seen as a goddess of light. But it makes sense that after her abduction into the underworld by Hades, if she is the goddess of light, then she is now in the underworld. Darkness fell across the land. And then in searching for her daughter, Demeter did use torches in looking for her. And then after Persephone had been down with Hades for a while, and she was constantly pleading with him, please let me go back to the surface. Please let me go back to the surface. He finally gave in. And so she is now allowed about 2/3 of the year on Earth and in Olympus. So spring, summer, fall, which is the season of light, the time of light, or the light period is what I read. And then she returns to Hades in the underworld for 1/3 of the year, which is the dark period, which is, of course, winter. So I thought that was really interesting. There are different symbolisms around the world that have reference to Candlemas that or this time of year in general that I thought was interesting. Crepes and pancakes. Did you know this?
Yes.
Yeah, you did?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Is this something in Latvia too, or no? Do you know?
Actually, pancakes are mentioned in a couple of. I'm just looking up a few of the ones that we've got in the spring. We've got 3 main ones too.
Do you really?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Do you have them up that you can say what they are? Or
they are metenje, lieldiennes, and uusinje. And metenje is the one that is the one you're talking about, the early one.
Right.
The early one that's like, okay, winter's done now, and now we're heading towards. And then lieldiennes would be the one that's the solstice, the solstice or equinox. I always get those mixed up. What's the
equinox, spring equinox.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
The equinox, I believe, and then uusinje is the one that's okay. Now we're going towards summer.
Right. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
See, guys, I love this. This is so neat. So the point to crepes and pancakes is that they symbolize the return of the sun, which in my temple sometimes we start celebrating at Yule, with the winter solstice right there. It's the timing is shifting and the days start getting longer then, and so we start looking forward to the return of the sun at Yule even. And there is in some areas in Europe, I think, I don't know if this still exists or not, but I thought it was kind of cool. So it's kind of a good fortune thing to do. So you hold a coin. If you can get a gold coin, that's great. But a coin in your left hand, flip the crepe or the pancake with the right hand. And if it lands back in the pan, then you'll have a prosperous year.
Oh.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of cool?
That is cool.
I thought I'm not about to try it because I'll have pancake batter all over my kitchen. But you might have a better shot at it than I do. But another tradition that I came across was children. In some of the towns, children would roam the towns with lanterns or homemade wands, singing traditional songs and hoping for rewards of sweets or cakes. Right? It kind of sounds like Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.